Since the start of human history. Why is it taking off at this point?
Exactly. So the reason why it's taking off at this point is because we're actually able to sequence people's genomes for a reasonable price. So when the first human genome was sequenced in the Human Genome Project, it took them $3 billion and 13 years to do. And so that's just not a price at which it makes sense. Now the cost of sequencing genes is falling, and now it's starting to get towards $1,000 per person. And so that means you can start sequencing large numbers of people and start to look across large databases to see if there are trends, if there are patterns that tell you, what genes are related to what symptoms or what conditions, and also to look for outliers, people who are extremes, who have really strange mutations.
What's the most valuable part of this process? Is it the database of people with these rare genetic mutations?
Yeah, so having large databases is truly valuable to drug companies now because you can really search for ties between, what your genes are doing and how your body is behaving.
And how did the medical community come to realize the potential power of these mutations, such as excessive resilience to pain or excessive bone formation to treat opposite conditions like osteoporosis? What was the aha moment?
Yeah, so normally in the past when pharma was trying to understand what our genes did, they'd have to look in mice. So you would create a knockout mice. So you knock out a specific gene in a mouse, and you say, oh, what does that do in the mouse? But mice are not humans. They're really different. So they're not always the best proxy. But you can't really do this to humans. You can't grab humans off the street and say, I'm going to knock out one of your genes and see what happens to you. And so the aha moment here is really when you find someone like Stephen Peat, the guy I interviewed, who doesn't feel pain. He's like, one of the drug makers described them as nature's experiments. And being able to find people like this tells you a lot about the human body and how other normal humans like you and I might behave if we can mimic these conditions.
That's certainly very valuable, but what's in it for Stephen Peat? Does he get paid to offer his body up for science? Is the drug company looking for a cure for him?
So that is one of the ironic realizations I had when I was working on this story, is that there are people like Stephen Peat who are extremely rare. There may be a few dozen people in the world who don't feel pain, but it really doesn't make sense for drug makers to be making drugs for this population just because it's, there's not really a big market for them. So talking to Stephen, he said to me, he's willing to take part in research studies because he wants to further our understanding of pain as a whole, and he does realize that there is a need for good new painkillers for the masses like you and me. But for now, nobody's working on anything to help him.
All right, Bloomberg's Carolyn Chen, thank you so much. Fascinating article once again in this week's edition of Bloomberg Business Week. Carolyn Chen.